Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Current Situation with me, your host, Lily Sanders. Special guest today, you guys, Jay Chase. And Jay is a testament to the power of resilience and transformation. Truly, from challenging beginnings as a former alcoholic and a felon, he's now a renowned leadership coach and a motivational speaker with a focus on helping you manage destructive emotions and habits, captivating audiences with personal anecdotes, humor, and actionable insights. Now, listen up. Jay emphasizes the belief that no dream is out of reach, which really aligns with the essence of Beyond the Current Situation, this podcast. But just to be clear, his story is a powerful reminder of the infinite potential within all of us. And with his infectious energy, which soon you will begin to listen to his energy and see his energy for yourself, he shares much more than this message of hope. Rather, he is living proof of it. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Jay Chase. Good morning, Jay. How are you doing today? And how is your heart today?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Super excited to be here. Heart is calm, present. Still very, very open and welcoming today. Just like I said, it's a blessing. How are you feeling? How are you?
I'm feeling great as well. Yeah, my heart is feeling still as well. Big still and no, right? I that's what I love about mornings. I don't know wherever people are tuning in from at this moment. It's morning here for Jay and for myself. And yeah, thankfully my heart is still. It's interesting because when years ago, I've been coaching since 2014, and I'm going to say about maybe 4 years ago, I learned from someone in Hawaii that they say that a lot. How's your heart today?
Mhm.
In the US, we're used to saying, you're walking past someone or you see someone, hey, how you doing? Right now, hey, how are you? But no one really, no one really,
Yeah.
technically like answers that back in a really um authentic manner. It's just like, yeah, okay. And they move on. But one of the things that I really loved when I first met Jay was he presents during his meetings on Zooms. He'll ask, how's your heart and mind? And I'm like, oh wow, I really connect with that. So I appreciate I got to ask you, how's your heart today?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got to hear about you because when you're on the other end, you're always listening in on everyone else, right? You're such an amazing listener. But let's talk about that a little bit. I don't want to be so ordinary. Most people, okay, tell me about your story.
Mm.
Um, you know, eh, for me, I'm a couple of decades ahead of you. So when someone says, tell me how it all began, I'm like, really?
It's still going.
I'm like, do you know how many stories, you know how many things, clashed from childhood to growing up in school to one marriage to one divorce to the next marriage to my son. I'm like, what? So what I am going to ask you first is if you could tell our audience and me, uh, if you're willing to share it, how old are you, Jay?
Not willing to share that. You'll never know. No.
Darn.
Next question. No. No, I just turned 30, June 4th. June 4th.
Oh,
Yeah.
happy birthday is in order.
Yeah.
What a blessing to be
Yeah.
30 years old
Yeah.
and have been on this earth in this human body for 3 decades and have crushed and mastered living a lifestyle that is sober and free of any kind of adverse situations like this felon that I don't know anything about. I like to be in an organic conversation. All of my audience knows this. So I don't like to know too much about anyone's story, just a little bit. So tell us let's back up to uh, what was life like in the day in life of Jay growing up at home as a young boy?
As a young boy, oh man, it was me, my older sister, my mother, my grandmother, and my father was in prison. But it was a lot of get out the house and go find something to do. And what that led to is just street life in Fort Worth, Texas. And then we moved to Columbia, Missouri. My mom got into a bad car accident when I was 7. So it was a lot of get out the house, go find something to do with me, my older sister. When I was younger, she's 6 years older than me. When I was 7, we moved to Columbia, and that's when things changed because that's where I've been for the past 20 plus years of my life. But that's also where my life started when I started developing lifelong relationships. And so the day in life was just get out the house, go find something to do. And we typically found trouble to get into. And being the new kid on the block, being the kid from out of town, just moving in here, not really having like any deep rooted connections to build off of from starting and just moving from Texas um, was harder,
Mm,
but we adapted. We adapted well. We adapted. My sister and I. She's 6 years older than me. I had 4 older sisters, or 3 older sisters, one younger sister, and the one that I'm the closest to lived with me in Texas. 2 of them lived in Kansas City. They were my father's children by a different mother. Like I said, you're gonna get the juice today, but
right.
it is it, day in the life was me and my sister just hanging out, either protecting each other, trying trying to find something to do and have some fun.
And was that the sister that was 6 or 7 years older than you?
Yeah, yeah,
I find that I hear that a lot. Um, I have one son, he has no siblings.
yeah.
And I find that people that I know and people that I've coached that have multiple siblings, their oldest sibling almost became like a mother figure or father figure, or what have you, or at least there was this very special closeness there. Is that kind of what happened with you and your sister?
Yeah, the one that is 6 years older than me,
Yes.
she definitely I always call it a true brother sister bond. But she's like she's my big sister. Like she has fought some fights that I couldn't fight, and I fought some fights that she couldn't fight. You know,
Mm,
and it's just like, and now we're so close in age to where I'm 30, she's 36, and so like we think alike. We're able to relate and resonate with each other a lot more and talk about the things that happened when we were younger and
mhm,
actually see it in a mature and perspective way of not blaming but just getting through life together. and
mhm.
and since then my family's experienced a lot of death, a lot of grief, and so my sister and I have played that back and forth parental role, one with each other but also with the family.
Mm. That I can that I can resonate with, playing
Yeah,
that role as the parent when you're actually still kind of trying to learn all about it yourself, right? Like in a really maybe an age that's maybe too young to even do, right? W-
absolutely.
Let me ask you, if I may. So here you are in Columbus, you're getting into whatever, all sorts of trouble on the street. How old were you around then?
Yeah, it was like little scraps when I was like a little kid. Like I was a decent child. Like the thing is that kept like the reason that we came to Columbia is that my mother almost died in a car accident. She was on life support and she was the only person up here. So my entire family moved from Texas to Columbia, Missouri.
Wow.
And and so she was on life support. She almost died. So it was like growing up, we only got in trouble when it found us, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
and
Did
so like through high school we were decent. That's good. I played football and all of that. I actually turned down some football scholarships to go to the University of Missouri for journalism. Um, and then I found the car business in 2011. But it was after high school that I literally started going on this downhill path. Is when I in 2013 when I found the car business. I started making a lot of money and I started making a lot of bad decisions.
hmm. Did your mother pass?
No, mother is still here. My father passed, my uncle, and my uncle passed
Mm,
within my first 2 years of sobriety.
hmm hmm
Mhm,
So your mother survived that car accident, thank
mhm,
goodness.
mhm.
And what kind of, so take me to that part, take us to where the car business and then how that pivoted. What was that pivotal, I'm not going to say moment. I know it was a gradual thing, little by little, but um, when did it all really go away?
When I was 20 years old and I made $79,000 in the car business, and that was my first year. And I kind of became a loose cannon because I believed in myself a lot more than anything else, right? And so that 79 turned into 90, turned into 100,000. By the time I was 21, I was making $100,000, and nobody around me was. And so that's kind of when that went away. When I
Yeah.
was out. So Columbia is a party town. We have 4 colleges here. So I dropped out of college to go make money while all my friends are still going to college, so they could make money. So anytime we would go come together and party, I was a guy who was making a lot of money. So I would make a lot of bad decisions based on the people that I was around.
Mm, hmm And why do why do you think that was?
The seek for validation, the seek for
Mm,
validation,
hmm
validation in brotherhood, validation in friends, and knowing that I'm not a failure because I dropped out of college, and knowing that, oh, Jay, you have a lot of money, so you're cool. So this desire to be widely accepted by a lot of people and not be seen as a failure or be rejected by people was always the ultimate reason why I was out tooting my horn, as we could say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting that you're aware of that. Uh,
yeah,
one of the things, like the old paradigm of parents when they're raising their children, it's like when you do something that is judged to be good or celebratory, it's like way to go. You get all those accolades, right? If you scored a goal in soccer or whatever, it's like, oh, way to go, Jay. Or you get a good grade, even in school, even in college. You get awarded for and validated for what you do really great. And what I found, one of the problems was that parents really grew this whole entire, later on as the children grew up and now you're a young adult, all you do is all you've done is learn how to seek validation in others by how you perform instead of just being who you are. And that was one of the major things that I had to learn was, wow, I'm really significant. I don't need to seek validation in another person. That was one of my big issues with marrying, the wrong people, the wrong person, and because I didn't validate myself.
yeah.
And so fast forward for you, um, when did you learn? Is that a lesson? I don't want to assume. Is that something that you learned down the road about really, validation, seeking that in yourself and love for yourself?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's actually like it's a major part of my personality. So if
Yeah.
anyone listening is familiar with the DISC assessment, I'm a certified DISC coach and consultant, facilitator, and emotional intelligence practitioner. Um, now that all is past, but no, it's a huge part of my personality and one that's shaped through childhood of seeking validation. And with me having 4 sisters, being the only male, my dad being in prison, I've been seeking validation my entire life and trying to be good enough. And so looking back and tracing back, once I decided to start doing the work on that, then that's where I can see and put that piece together of like, oh, there's me seeking validation. It still shows up today. It's not. I don't look at it as a dark side of me. I don't look at it as a bad side. I don't think validation is bad at all. I think if you need validation, you need validation. You need to learn to get it from yourself. then external forces. But if I can look at some work that I've done nowadays and say, yo, I feel good, I validate that stamp of approval. That's great. But then when it comes to like finding that out about myself, that didn't happen till 2017, 2018. And I always call that the rise, right? That era of the rise. Um,
Mm,
because
exactly.
I in 2017, February 5th, I woke up in a jail cell after a night of partying, being out. And the only difference between this time of me waking up in a jail cell and the time before was that they didn't let me out. There was no bond. I pressed a little button and I was like, yo, what's my bond? And they said no bond. And I was like, what? No bond? What did I do? What are the charges? And typical J fashion. At that time, I was on probation for a bar fight that I got into, and I stopped seeing my probation officer because I was still drinking. Like I didn't, there was no desire in me to change. And they said probation violation, and I was like, oh, okay, dope. At least I didn't do anything new. At least I didn't do anything new. No new charges. I know what I'm.
Right.
I know what I'm facing,
You have
and
all the answers.
I was like, great. And but I was actually facing 11 years in prison. And I I was lucky enough not to have to do that. I did 6 months in prison, and I was released from that July 1st, 2017. And ever since then, I've just been on this personal development climb of just being a good person, and figuring out myself along the way and how I want to live.
Yeah.
Oh,
And living your best life, your
yeah,
best self,
yeah.
right? Uh, Thank you for that transparency. There's a couple of things in there I wanted to tease out.
Mm,
First is obviously the judge was like, how many times are we going to slap you on the wrist?
yeah,
So they made a point out of it. And thankfully it
mhm,
really did it really did help you.
yeah.
And you could look at this one of two ways. I would say, have you already reframed it to being grateful for that judge that gave you that opportunity to put the fire under your butt and actually get your act together?
uh, Mixed feelings about the judge, about the experience. Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I think God shines brightest in our weakness,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I found God was my prison cell.
Was in your prison cell.
So
And
yeah, everything about prison happened for me, not to me. Yeah.
mm-hmm. How did you get out in 6 months?
That's what it was a shock.
Was
six
that
months.
God?
No, that was the judge. Six.
That
That
was
was
the,
a, that was God did his work the moment that I stepped in there.
yeah.
I don't, and for those listening who don't know the picture landscape of a prison, when you first get into a receiving and diagnostic center, they literally make you strip down and they spray you down with Lysol to disinfect you to come into the prison, right? And God did his work within the first 5 minutes of me being there, so it didn't matter how long I was there. But no, it was a shock treatment because I had to go do 6 months in prison, and then I got out and I was on 5 years of probation. And I had a felony conviction to stay on my record. So she gave, like, the judge gave it to me. Like, they're like, slap on the wrist, SIS, SIS. I have, to go into a long history of the problems and mistakes that I made in my life, of doing things under the influence that I should have never been doing, and for it to all snowball to this point right here. And yeah, I did 6 months in prison and then 5 years of probation. And I was
Mm-hmm.
lucky enough to get off probation 2.5 years early.
Mm-hmm. So my other question is, what was the gist of, like, what was the MO? Was it bar fighting? Was it driving under the influence of substances?
Mhm.
Was it stealing? Was it getting caught with X amount of drugs or weed? Like what, or was it everything?
Yeah, I mean, what wasn't it? All right, the only
Okay.
thing you like when we're under the influence, there's we do things that we wouldn't do in our right mind.
Hmm.
Like, and when it comes down to it, I've never been arrested sober. So
Mhm.
it's like I couldn't. And so with the decisions that we were making, I was making, it's bar fights, drugs, drinking. It's, I mean, yeah, it's every single way that addiction shows up.
Mhm.
Mm,
Mhm. Okay, got it. And we should be really transparent here, even with each other. Like, none of this is something that I don't understand. A lot of my audience, some of people that have read my book know even just a little bit
mm,
of what I've seen and what I've been through. But just to give you perspective and to give our audience perspective, um, I married someone who I found out later was a felon. He was uh, running. What do you call that? When he was he was kind of running from the law, like he was arrested. He
mm,
ran from Texas and he was hiding out back up here in New York where he's from, and they finally caught him, and he got um I forget how much time. I want to say like 12 years, hard time in Texas with the good old boys. And
mm,
he wound up doing 5.5.
mm,
And so, if this gives you any perspective, Jay,
mm,
I married someone that came from that experience.
mm,
And I was brutally beaten. I was a battered wife from
mm,
this person who was uh, addicted to
mm,
marijuana, which anyone listening, if you think it's not addicting, it is. He couldn't function in the morning, couldn't go to sleep at night without marijuana. And every time he tried to quit, uh, it came up to like two things. Either he wanted me to be his mommy and say, hold my weed, you know, and if I really need it, and which I, of course, said, no, I'm not going to do that. You're a big boy and I'm a mom, right? I was a mother. And the other is, or he was all or nothing. So he would go back to the gym. He went on to, went into this wellness health kick, which is how I met him. So I didn't even know who the heck
mm,
I got into a relationship with.
mm,
So I know now, post that information, just to put the landscape on the wall for you there. I've read letters, I've read things in journals while he was in. I know the gross experiences that go on there.
mm.
Now, does and I know that a lot of people probably do find they either find God or they find some higher power that turns their life around when they come out,
Mm,
or they go right back into their mess, right?
mm.
And so, what was it for you that really was the glue that made it stick where you turned your life around truly?
Just want to touch on something you said, and as you know, that's the reason why you wrote the book, but that, your story identical to my mother's, met my dad when he was on the run from Missouri. And I'm actually named after his alias. Like I'm the only person in my family with the last name Chase.
No.
Yeah, 100%. And so, like, I remember being 17 and getting pulled over for speeding and getting guns drawn on me because they thought I was my father. And
Wow.
yeah, and I was like, no, I'm the junior, and I didn't murder nobody. And they're
Right.
like,
What
oh,
was your mother
okay.
thinking when she named
She was thinking that she was thinking that that was my dad's name.
you? No goodness. Oh,
And there's things that so yeah, no, definitely understand like I understand that side of it because that's my mother's story, from DV to alcoholism to moving
wow.
to Texas to living in
Wow.
Missouri by herself to almost dying to go see this man and getting ran off the road by a semi and put on life support. So like that. So yeah, no, I definitely there's things out there because like people do that. You know what I mean? And luckily, like you said, they either find God or they go right back into their mess. But it's a choice because God does his best work when we're in the dark, when we're in the wilderness, when we have nothing else to lean on but ourselves. And so for me, it was just coming to fact with looking around and saying I wanted to be nothing like my father, and then find myself in a prison cell and say, oh, my way has led me to being exactly like my father. So God, I'm gonna try it your way. And I made a covenant with God that if you deliver me from this and help me get through this, then I'll do this.
The
and
I appreciate that, but the difference is that you really acknowledged and really committed to that covenant, as you put it, to God. Many people don't. So that's big. You said, this is what I'm going to do if I can do this, if you can make this happen, if you can be my strength, and you did it.
and and I have to continue to honor that covenant. That's why I do what I do now.
Yeah, I love that you honor that. And I want to move forward with that. And before we do, though, go forward, it's interesting because my ex-husband, the one I was telling you about, he pretended to be this completely different person, although maybe it was well intended, and he hid all of that. I didn't find out about any of that past until it was too late, until afterwards. But what I did learn was his motivations. And what I had to learn the hard way was, I'm not going crazy. It's not me. And the more I understood where he came from, because he would tell me stories. And much to your point, Jay, I remember having an experience with him, and it reminded me of a story he told me of what he experienced watching his father, his biological father, with his father's girlfriend. And I thought, wow, he just recreated the scene that traumatized him. He just recreated that scene with me decades later. The very scene that traumatized him, he did to me, traumatizing my son, like in a room behind me. And I got to say, wow. But you never tell someone who's violent, oh, that's just like what your father did. You can't do, you're not gonna add to those triggers. But it did help me understand, okay, this is what I'm dealing with now. What? And then I had to do my work. But I want to ask you something. Having said what I said, you lived that, you've said, I heard you say that your father, you kind of wound up doing what he did.
Mm.
But what I also heard you say that I'd like to ask you a question on,
Mm.
do you find, and I say this as a mother of a son who's 26,
Yeah.
do you find that you, no matter what you've heard about dad, about your father, do you find that you just in a way always want to seek validation from your father, if let's say he was alive today or throughout your life living? Were you looking to seek validation from him or acceptance?
Um, that is it's a tough question only because I've done the work and I know myself. You know what I mean? Like therapy, through battling emotions and habits and all of the things. And what I've discovered, and I can only answer this from current knowledge, right? Because if I paint a picture of past knowledge, then it's going to be like I didn't know what I knew now, right? And I'll answer this from current knowledge. Um, yes and no, but it has never been directly from my father, and so I seek validation and approval no matter what situation or scenario I'm in. That's the first thing I seek because I'm people oriented. And so subconsciously, naturally, knee jerk, when I'm walking into a situation, I want to make sure that people like me, I'm connected, validated, right? And that's how my natural behavior style shows up because of how I was raised. Now, to what your point about recreating our traumas, it's actually proven that if we don't process our traumas, we actually repeat them every 7 years. And
Mm, I have heard.
somewhere around us, we actually manufacture them and manifest them back into our lives because of our subconscious. And so at that point, that's what I was doing, was manifesting this trauma of going to go visit my dad in prisons, going to go see my dad in prisons, going to go do all of this stuff in prisons, to the point where it was almost, if I didn't deal with that or process that, that's where my life was headed. And so instead, I did process that, and I was able to break that cycle of what my dad went through. I never knew any of my grandfathers. Like, my father and my uncle are the only two male figures that I really had in my family. Everything else is women. Everything else is women. So I've always seek validation and approval as a man, never as, because I'm surrounded by women. So like I said earlier, when I sought a brotherhood, when I would go out, kick it, spend money on people, it would be with the boys, because I wanted to be validated in that aspect, but not so much from my father. So I just wanted to clarify that, as in, it's not it's me. I just seek validation. I'm hoping the audience is loving this conversation right now, because I'm seeking deep down. I'm like, okay, I need not need validation, but that's what I do. Like, you can give me validation and not a check, and I'm good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What I learned, and I'm 60, I'll be 61 this year. What I learned, and I have a son, only son, as I mentioned earlier. Uh, and I've had a marriage, divorce. My first marriage was with my son's biological father, divorce, and then the second one was with the one that I had mentioned earlier. Now, here's what I learned. Um, a a boy will always love their mother and love their father, but they also feel like they have this unconditional love from their mother, no matter what they do, whether they're a heart surgeon or an oncologist or a top corporate attorney or a felon in and out of jail. They know that they know that they know that in most cases, I'm talking about in most cases, that their mother will love them unconditionally no matter what. And what I found is with a father, they will do what they must, even to some extent, chase their father to seek approval from their father. And that's what I've learned within my decades of having a son, coaching people, and speaking to thousands of people. That's what I've learned between the two, mother and father. Uh, how does that show up for you?
My mom's like my best friend.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like, and given that she gave birth to me and she carried me for 9 months, as I got an 8-month-year-old son right now. I'm a very good father, right? And I'm very present. I work, like, I have my own business, like, I'm in my kid's life, and still there's moments where he wants his mom, because that was his lifeline. Like, that was his life. Like, he literally, like, as a child, that's my son, and it doesn't matter if it's a son, daughter, or whatever. My son sees him as a part of my my significant other. Like
Mhm.
like when he sees mom, he's like, that's me.
Mhm.
I don't see a separate identity or entity or being, or like a separate person. But when he sees dad, when he sees me, he's interested, because he didn't spend 9 months with me. He didn't sleep with me for 9 months. He didn't, you know what I mean? He came of,
Interesting perspective.
you
So you
know,
think that's the reason behind the differences? That's very interesting.
There's
And
a
what
couple books that I
about as far as seeking approval from daddy? Now, your son's a little young yet, but you might be able to see that. I don't know.
and that comes on traditions on how they're raised, whether that's overly praised or overly criticized. And then you can either, and this is where most high achievers are developed, and through childhood between the ages of 0 to 7 years, that if they're overpraised and over criticized, as in no 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 don't do that, or yay good job good job good job, then they're always going to seek that good job, right? Versus when you celebrate effort, when you celebrate resilience, when you celebrate the fact that somebody did something that they were trying to do, they're not going to seek approval. They're going to seek to do it better and correctly, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's natural, but it comes down to parenting style, and when it comes to,
Totally.
so for me, I spent 9.5 years in the car business. Great. I'm a great salesperson. Great. I made a decision to leave 6 figures. Like, just because I got my act together doesn't mean that I stopped making money. No, like, we just actually went to the next level and I did better in my career, and I was able to manage it better. I was able to steward it better. Right. And I made a decision. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go into full-time coaching, speaking, and training, and I'm going to spend the first year with my son, right? Because the car business wouldn't have let me do that. I would have
Mm-hmm.
been at the lot from 8 to 8 selling cars, and then trying
Mm-hmm.
to build a business on the side, coaching who needs help on the side because I'm a good heart, right? And and so I made a decision to just be with them, and we looked at like parenting styles. We looked at what's the best way for us not to put our trauma on our child, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that originates with one from the 4 agreements: be impeccable with our words, don't take anything personally. Like, our son's not in this world doing anything to us, right? And what he does is because he doesn't know the difference between right and wrong, which is the best place to be, in my opinion, right?
Yes.
But and
Yes.
then we don't make assumptions about what he wants. We let him communicate that, or try and pick up on the cues of communication, and then we always do our best to be our best. And so there's no, and those are just like our parenting laws, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so there's no good bad, achievement style, disciplinary style, good job, you need to be a good boy, like none of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where that approval from daddy starts coming in, because he hasn't been a part of dad. And especially if any mother nurses, my mom nurses our son, and and it's that, like, I can't give him what he needs when he needs.
Yeah, I nursed my son for 13 months.
Yeah, and so
He
like
was like part of my body everywhere I went. I remember my
that's
sister saying, "Oh my goodness, that's a full-time job." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine with it."
yeah, and that, but that also proves and backs up your point of them always feeling a part of mom, and looking
Mhm.
at dad like somebody separate, and oh, I'm interested in what you do. And so anytime that they do something to like impress dad, and I read this in, I'll shoot you the book and we can, but um it's the fact that they look for approval and seeing if they did it right in dad's eyes.
That was what I wanted to know if you were aware of boys, no matter what, even if their father is a shit, they
Mhm.
seek approval from their father. I actually had someone who I used to date when I was divorced, and he knew um, we knew each other for a long time since like school, like high school, junior high, high school years. And I remember being really confused and not understanding that. And he said, Lily, my father was a shithead. He was really shit. He said, but I chased him. I chased him everywhere. And I found that really interesting. He said, and he actually taught me that by just admitting and telling me that that's just the way guys are wired. And I really appreciated that. And what he said really proved to be true, that boys just seek approval from dad. And I find it interesting, really, really interesting. And so when you have this father that wasn't this great example, how do you think that affected you when you went into drinking and drugs? Or I don't know if you were on drugs, but what was your substance
Alcohol.
abuse like?
Alcohol. I can drink the Nile River dry. Alcohol. I overdrink, and what was the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. How did I know it's
I was like,
yeah. So the question is, with that constant, like, seeking approval, let's say, for your dad, even unconsciously, let's say, but knowing that your dad was not the best example, and truly understanding that and knowing that you're totally aware of that, right? You're not living in a box. You're not living in a, with these shields over your eyes. You realize your father was not the best example as you're growing up. How did that add to you being compelled to abuse your body with alcohol?
I don't think it did.
Okay. What did?
Because it like he was deep in his addiction. Like there was a disconnect between my father. Like you don't find out that you've been seeking approval until you go back and ask yourself why I did this.
Oh, 100%.
Like you don't find
100%.
yourself, you
We're
don't
just
find
trying to
yourself,
tell people here that are listening so that they can start to turn the lens in.
and that's what I think, and that's what I think because there's driving emotions between in my coaching practice. I use disc, right? So
I love, yeah, disc assessment is good. It's a
it's
valuable tool.
extremely valuable tool. I don't know if you've heard of the flight assessment, which is the most modern disc assessment. And it's the newest one that's just hit the marketplace. I'm certified in that one as well. But they behind each personality style is driving emotions. I believe this through and through in my heart, because I've seen it proven over and over. One, from using it in recovery, using it in corporate, using it in sales. My employer at the car lot that I work at has been using this for 35 years. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to argue with the science behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Pause,
and
pause there for a moment. People should know if they're using a disc with assessment with their coach or in the corporate world, that it's important to have it redone because your disc assessment changes as you grow in your life.
very rarely, if roles change in your life, it will change
Okay.
because of behaviors and duties and responsibilities. So
Got it.
if you get a promotion to, say, from just being a base employee, and you get a promotion to management, you probably have to make more decisions. So
Mm-hmm.
your D will actually change, or you'll make decisions according to how your D lays. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's that conscious effort of either I'm going to be more decisive and then your disc is going to change. But if you make decisions depending on your disc, your D is not going to change. And I just want
Mm.
to, and so there's three reasons why your disc would change: role change, like in jobs; traumatic experience. So if something like traumatic happens to you, and the way that you see yourself changes, and the way that you exert yourself externally starts to change. So and then chronic pain, because we lose self-confidence in chronic pain. So those are the three times that your disc will probably change. If
That's
you,
what happened to me then.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I
chronic.
had all three
See,
because I lost
and
all of my businesses, the home, I lost everything because I was the breadwinner.
mhm.
So I went from rags to riches to rags. I had a broken neck, broken collarbone. Community humiliation, you name it.
Wow.
And there was the third one. What was the third one? Oh,
Chronic pain.
trauma, and obviously the trauma,
Mm.
but which also turned into more physical issues. But I have to say that that's what I noticed. Like, wow, my disc assessment changed slightly. Not everything, but
Yeah.
it did change, and that's that. Thank you for explaining that.
Mm.
So now, how does that? What does that look like for you when you do? Do you just work with people? I'm going to assume no, but do you just work with people that have gone through trauma or substance abuse or alcoholics?
No,
Alcohol abuse, rather?
yeah, no, I focus a lot on personal and professional development. And so what I do is I help expose blind spots, manage them, navigate, achieve success, and grow where they want to grow according to their personality without changing too much, but using your unique gifts, strengths, and things that come naturally to you, right? You can't tell an egg to be bacon. An
Right.
egg has to be an egg, right? But you can definitely spice up the egg with some spices, right? And so I
Mhm.
teach people how to spice up their who they are using their natural gifts.
Mm, be their best eggs.
Be your best egg. Be your best egg.
That's so
There,
funny. Like the saying, he's a good egg.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so
I don't
funny.
know. I don't know where
Wait,
that
let's do a new
analogy.
thing on do a new thing, a new event. Be a good egg. He's a good egg.
I said that. Right. I mean, it's gonna follow me for the next 5 years now.
That's great. I love that. That's like such an old saying. Oh, he's a good egg.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now you're on this path, let's say, of substance or alcohol abuse. What was it that what was the if there is one thing, what was the one thing that opened your eyes, turned it around for you and said, "Hey, you can get your act together."
God, God, having
Beautiful.
having that conversation with God in the prison cell. It's like, look
Mhm.
around you. Like I've tried everything my way. I've tried bonding out of jail. I've had the money. I've had the lawyers. I tried everything my way. And this is one thing I want to say to the listeners that everybody's on a spiritual journey, even if they don't know that they're on a spiritual journey. It's just our decision to open up our eyes, right? And when we feel like we've hurt enough that we have to, that's when we'll get there, right? And
Amen
during,
to that.
yeah,
I say when you really can't get any lower than you're at, you've
yeah,
got two choices. You just die there, even if it's a spiritual death,
yeah,
uh, or you pick up
yeah.
with a higher power, with
A
God.
hundred, 100%, 100%. And we get to a place, and there's 4 seasons in a person's life when they change. Either
What are
one,
those?
one, they hurt enough they have to. Two, they see enough they're inspired to. Three, they learn enough they choose to. Or four, they receive enough they're able to. And at that moment, in that moment where I was like, yo, let's change, it was number one for me. I heard enough, I had to, and God lifted me up, and like I said, I made that covenant with the Lord. And I it started off over the years. I have added to my covenant, but it started off with, if you deliver me from this, Lord, I'll vow to never be violent again, and I'll just be a good person. That's it. Like I got in a bar fight, like, you know what I mean?
That's big
Like,
though.
yeah,
That's big.
and I was drinking. I was like, yo, and like I didn't even say I'll never drink again. I just said I'll never be violent again. Right. And I got through those days, and I got through, and God was just working on my heart the entire time. So I'm like, all right, all right. And then I get out of prison. They're like, yo, we're gonna send you to prison for 11 years if you have a sip of alcohol. And I was like, whoa, that's part of my probation. And they're like, that's part of your probation. I was like, all right, the Lord has spoken. And
Mm,
so I added that to my covenant. I was like, cool, I just won't drink no more.
mm.
And then I was like,
Interesting.
I just want to be a good person. So I put all my efforts into being a good person and fulfilling my covenant of not being violent and not drinking.
It's almost like that set you up by doing one thing,
Yeah.
right? Let me just focus on committing to no violence. It almost was practice for you to now do, okay, now let me focus on no alcohol. Like when you help people in their alcohol free journey, do you suggest that they just focus on letting go of one thing at a time?
Yes. Yes and no. I've I com- completely tell them not to focus on not drinking, be honest with you.
Yeah,
Because
like don't
I
focus on it.
don't focus on not drinking. Like it's
Let me rephrase then. Work on. What I mean is work on. Like, in other words, sometimes we'll see like people even on the Reframe app, like, oh, okay, I stopping alcohol, or let's say someone is, I'm hypothetically speaking,
yeah,
let's say someone says, I'm stopping alcohol and I'm on a diet. I'm making this up,
yeah,
and I'm stopping, whatever substances. I'm really oblivious. I'm so like drug free for my whole life, so I don't even know. And I'm stopping coffee,
yeah.
right? I would be like, dude, there's no way that I'm adding coffee in that mix. Like, I know me, I know the way like I work. I'm like, whoa, let's slow down the train, one thing at a time. What do you feel about that?
um I would say you don't need motivation to stop all of those things. You need clarity on where you're headed. Why are you wanting to stop all of those things? And I always work from a place of why. And so in 2017, in the second half of the back end of 2017, on this quest to just be a good person, right? On this quest to just be a good person and fulfill my covenant that I made, um, I developed a personal growth plan for myself. And it was like, yo, for the next 90 days, I'm gonna focus on 3 commitments. That's it. That's it. Just 3 commitments for the next 90 days. And since I can't drink alcohol, all I can do is eat, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to drink alcohol. I can't. It's in my probation. Like it's in my probation rules. I can't drink alcohol. So I took that energy of like people going out, people hitting me up, people doing all of this. I was like, and I just tailored it to 3 things. 3 things. Drink a gallon of water, go to the gym once a day, right? And read 10 pages of a book each day.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Great.
it. That
Yeah.
was it. Those are the 3 things that I was like, yo, they're common, they're simple, whatever it may be. And that actually set up how I live my life now. I live
Mm-hmm.
my life, I believe, in 2 timelines. 10 years and 90 days. Everything I do in the next 90 days should push me towards who I want to be in 10 years. And
That's perfect.
I live by those 3 commitments now. I identify growth gaps on what's stopping me from getting to where I want to be. So I always tell people, all right, what's the number one goal? What do you want? What is it that you want? Maybe this year, within the next 6 months, what is it that you want? Right? Like, what is it that you gotta have? And some people are like, okay, I want good relationships. I want a better relationship with my son. I want to be able to stop drinking. I want to be able to go hang out, this, that, whatever you want, whatever it may be. Right? I say, cool. Why don't you have it now? Right? Because I drink too much, or because I do this, because I'm a people pleaser, because I get angry all the time. Cool, great, awesome. What are 3 things that you could do every single day for the next 90 days to push you towards getting that, right? And they're like, well, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. Great, awesome. So for me, that's 45 minutes of movement, 1 gallon of water, and reading a book that helps me in my craft, speaking, coaching, learning, training, leadership, whatever it may be. That's for me. And then I ask them, what is one consequence that is greater than doing those 3 commitments? So for me, that was donating $500 to a church or charity. If I didn't go to the gym, I would have to donate $500. And I was like, I don't have $500 right now. I was like, I can't do that. But this is a covenant that I'm making with myself in order to be better, right? Back in 2018. And so I, I make that commitment, and I ask myself, who would benefit if I actually did everything that I said I would do? Who around me would directly or indirectly benefit? And I came up with a list of 3 people. And that's the process that I always, day one, take my clients through. Like that's no secret. And like I have a whole 90-day personal growth challenge that's designed exactly like that. That came from that thought process in me in 2018. So 6 years ago, when God was showing me how to be a good person, where to put my energy and what to do and to fulfill this covenant, now I'm able to give it back to other people who want to stop focusing on, oh, I just want to stay sober today. I'm like, no, you don't. You want to do so much more with your life. And don't minimize it to the fact of where you just want to be sober. Yeah, you want to be sober today, and What else do you want to do? You want to be sober and, right? And so it's like you got to get to a point where you live in that and, where sober isn't just a goal anymore. Now it's like, and I want to do this, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And from where I'm standing from, and from my experience and my experience in my self-growth and now helping others as a coach, you have basically learned how to fulfill or continue to fulfill the 6 human needs, which is certainty, uncertainty or variety, love or connection, right? Growth, contribution, and significance. And growth and contribution, those are always related to your spiritual needs. But as far as that certainty, uncertainty, love, and significance, most people uh, run on two. Two of those needs are running their life, and they're driving the wheel through those two things. And we really feel fully whole and holy
That part.
when we have those 6 things fulfilled. And so
Yeah.
you pretty much explained how you, possibly unknowingly, are filling those 6 human needs. And I celebrate you for that.
Wow. Wow. This is a true moment to those listening, because like I said, I dropped out of college. I'm doing this off the pure spirit of will of wanting to do better, right? And so thank you for that, because I didn't even know that, right? And the way that I broke it down was to Zig Ziglar's will of life, right? Mind, body, spirit. I changed it up a little bit, whatever. Intimate relationships, networking relationships, business and finances. And I just rate myself on those every 90 days. I do 90-day assessments in these 7 areas. How am I doing and where do I want to be? And then I create a plan on how to fulfill those. Because what I discovered and what I learned in prison is that when I got out of prison, I spent 6 months in there. Not a single person hit me up. Nobody on Snapchat, nobody on Facebook, nobody on Instagram, nothing. Nobody hit me up. So I could have,
Bastards.
right. But what that
They weren't
equate,
really your friends, were they?
well, what I equate that to is that they didn't miss that version of Jay. I don't blame them for not hitting me up. Think about the things that I was doing. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I could have died. And I was like, nobody would have been to my funeral. And I was like, dope. Now I just got to be a good person. So when I leave this earth, I'm somebody that somebody misses. And
Define
God,
what that means. A good person to
a
you.
good person.
To you. Yeah.
To me, I just want to be a good person. That's it, man.
What kind of egg does that look like?
That's a plain egg. Let me tell you about that.
That's
Good
one
person.
spicy egg.
Right. No, I actually didn't know what that looked like when I got out of prison. So I went on a
Yeah.
quest to discover that.
Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
I'm be honest with you. I'm still just trying to be a good person. I don't know if I'm
Well,
there or not.
look, we all need to continue to every day. It's a practice. I always say, and I learned this from my coach, if you're the most interesting person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the
Same,
wrong room.
same. If you're the most interesting person in the room, if you're the smartest person in the room, if you're the wittiest person in the room, take out witty, but then you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Because we need to be in a room where, yes, we can contribute what we've learned and what we have mastered, but also where we can learn and we can, I hate to say benefit, but where we can really, really be nurtured from people that have learned more than we have at this point. I can sit in a room with someone who's very coherent, that's maybe 80 the late 80s or early 90s and have a conversation that looks much different than you and I. And I remember being young in a room with my grandmother, who was from Italy. And it was quite a different, I always remember this. A conversation with my grandmother was always very different because, and I found it very, I was kind of an old soul. So I was really okay with hanging out and learning different things. I was been learning my entire life. And I was really enjoying learning from her and her perspective. Imagine being sitting in a room with someone who has lived through world wars that you couldn't even wrap your head around,
Mhm.
right? And who has lived through like the Great Depression, and it explained so much, so many little things like, why does she take the napkin and cut it in half? Oh, she lived in the Great Depression. Like, this is where she came. She lived this. And I could take that forward into my life today. And I can move through a heart of compassion and empathy as opposed to judgment when someone, uh, when I'm not really feeling the love, if you know what I'm saying. And then I could decide, okay, not having that in my life anymore. And I could walk away.
Yeah.
But I could walk away with compassion and empathy for that person. And yeah, I might not totally understand it because no one lives in anyone else's heart or brain, right? But I can really react to it differently and hold myself accountable to myself and God. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, it goes back to one what Gandhi says, or you know, our thoughts become our words, or keep your thoughts positive, right? Because
Mhm.
our words become our actions become our behaviors become our habits become our values become our morals, right? And
Mhm.
so that's really like, because when I got out of prison and I said I just wanted to be a good person, it led me to a place of what you basically just said. I can pick and choose in what love I participate in. I don't have
Mhm.
to suffer for anybody. And what that came down to was me operating from four places, right? Be impeccable with my words everywhere I go. I'm not using my word to tear anybody down. That's it. So this is my outline to a good person, guys. Listen up, right? Because when it came down to it, I was like, yo, I get to, if I'm able to be impeccable with my words everywhere I go, build people up, speak inspiration, like the root word inspire means to breathe life into. If I can breathe life into people and be impeccable with my word, right? If I don't take anything personally, if I know that what they're doing is because of them and not because of me, and I don't take anything personally, right? And I don't make assumptions. Do I know this to be true? How would I feel if this was true? What if this wasn't true? Now let me ask myself, is this true? Right? If I don't make assumptions, and then if I always do my best with everything that I do, it's not my fault that that relationship didn't work out. It's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not my fault that this person's bitter. And I'm able to live in a place of being a good person and being able to move past that or away from that, knowing that I did everything that I could. I didn't take anything personally. I didn't make assumptions. I did my best and I was impeccable with my word. I didn't tear you down. And guys, those are the four agreements by the book by Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the four agreements. But I
What are
read,
those four agreements?
be impeccable with your word.
Hmm.
Don't take anything personally.
Hmm.
Don't make assumptions, and always do your best.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that I'd like to just even add to, because you've already said it possibly in a different way, but I always raised my son this way. Two things, two of my Lilyisms, right, with my son, who I'm proud to say is an amazing young man. Um, no drugs, no alcohol. He's a good man, good young man. is one, do the best, like when he tried at something and he was a wrestler, do the best that you can and do the best that it can be done.
Mm.
So sometimes it's like, well, did you do the best that you could? You know, I remember a day where and I went to every meet, and he was a very good wrestler, but he lost this match and he got pinned, and he was like, we didn't talk the whole way home from driving home, and he's not talking and I'm not talking. I'm just letting him be in his moment, whatever. Get in the house, and um I'm a single divorced mom, and he's yeah, at this point I got rid of the other dum dum, the stepfather. So like was good. And he, regular routine, throws those wrestling clothes downstairs by getting the laundry in, and he's showering, and I prepare dinner, and I'm like, I call his name to come down. He comes down to eat. There was complete silence the whole time, just doing our routine, letting him have his space and figure it out. And we're sitting to eat. We're on the counter in the kitchen. And he goes, I should have, I should have pivoted, and I don't know, whatever he said with his arm and whatever. And I go, yeah, you should have. And he was like looking at me like, and he had this like epiphany, like, okay, I didn't do it the best that it could be done. I probably could have done it even better. Like, I did the best that I can, but I didn't do it the best that it could be done. And that's okay. As long as you come into that awareness every time you try something. It's like, I don't personally like the word failure. I know that there's a lot of different concepts out there, and failing forward, that sounds a little bit better also. But I just feel like we really can only grow at the speed of whatever we're vibrating at, if that makes any sense. And so instead of looking at it as, okay, I failed today, or I lost that wasn't a win, this is a win. I love to celebrate the wins, but when I feel like I didn't win, I mostly like to look at it as, okay, how can I show up different next time so I could really do it beyond better? And so that was one thing, right? Are you doing it the best that you can? Are you doing the best that it can be done? And the other big thing was, and I won't say his name, I said this to him. He was raised with this. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Jay, I have told him full out, I don't want you hanging out with that boy, a boy that's been in my home, right? Mom, but and I raised him born again Christian. He went to Christian school. I mean, like, he was like, well, that's not really like loving everyone. I go, I didn't say not to love them. I said, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. I don't want you hanging out with that boy. And he got a little angry with that, but now he understands it. I taught him to really surround himself with people that he aspires to be. Or if you can't find those people in that current whatever environment, then maybe you need to be the leader, which is tough. Jay, it's not easy being a leader. It could be innate. And that's why people maybe like yourself and other people, and including myself, can be leaders. Leaders sometimes are also, they don't have a big circle of people that they can go to, but they always do have other leaders that help them. Reading, you read all the time. We're always training ourselves so that we could be our best self for other people, but mostly first for ourselves, right? So those are the two things that just I kind of thought that I would speak to, just to underscore what you're talking about being, doing better, being, what does a good person mean to you,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, man. It's gonna take others more time to develop as a leader, and that it can be done. And that's the premise of what I do for most companies is I help develop managers into leaders,
I
right?
love it.
And like I help develop people into leaders. Like I believe that people can be developed. That's my premise in my story. If we would have like I wasn't born, maybe I was born an innate leader. You know, maybe I've always shown up like that. I definitely didn't see that in myself, nor and I just now am. You know, being 6.5 years sober, being 1 year into business for myself. You know what I mean? I'm just now seeing these things of these possibilities, planning the speaking tour, you know, for 2024, the Amplify workshop, like where we're going to 4 cities, and then people want to learn on this premise of right of getting better and doing better and being your best. So I love one, what you taught your son, and then two, but being able to implement that throughout life over
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
over and
Yeah,
over.
it's key. Tell
It's
me,
principles. Yeah.
yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that tour? What is that about for
Amplify
2024?
Amplify workshop. So the Amplify workshop is a 2.5 day workshop. No, sorry, 2 day workshop, not 2.5 day. 2 day workshop. And it is focused around awareness. So gaining self-awareness, mindfulness. So cultivating a mindful way in life of living, purpose, discovering what your true purpose is, leadership, inspiration, focus, and you. And we have about 3 to 4 speakers that come out, and they teach on each subject. And if you guys didn't catch that, amplify is the acronym for those principles.
Acronym for what?
For all those principles:
Oh,
awareness,
right.
mindful,
That's oh,
purpose,
perfect.
leadership,
I didn't
inspiration,
pick up
focus.
on that.
I know, just in case
That's
you guys
great.
didn't catch that, amplifies. And so we have speakers come out and teach on those principles, teach on what that looks like, and empower and encourage other people how to implement personal and professional growth into their life. This year we're starting off in Scottsdale, Arizona, January, and then April will be in LA County. July will be in Portland, and then October we will be in Seattle. And then I think we're gonna have some East Coast states on there
You
as
should
well.
try and come out by me in New York.
You are the. A lot of people are saying that, so we might
We'll
have
have to
to.
talk. We'll talk
We'll
after the
talk about making
podcast.
that.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
make that happen. You talk about being impeccable with your words.
yeah,
Now, I met you through my alcohol-free journey through the Reframe app. And oh, there's a little plug for Kevin, right? And so one thing I always hear you say is be intentional. So can you tell our audience what you mean by being an intentional when it comes to your journey with sobriety?
absolutely. Um, so often many people think that as we go throughout life and we get older, we get better. Like we learn, and I believe that there are two different types of growth. You have accidental growth and intentional growth. And I don't think us just going through life, we get better. I think as we get older, we get more bitter unless we're being intentional with our growth, right? Because I run into so many people who say, "Oh, you know, if I could have did this when I was this age, and I should have done this, or I would have did this," and I'm like, "Let's get rid of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Let's be extremely intentional." And taking you back to my 90-day personal growth challenge of 10 years and 90 days. It's intentional. What can I do in these 90 days to push me to who I want to be in 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, whatever? You get 4 90-day seasons in 1 year. So, like, be intentional with every day that you have. Like, literally, like, the first question I always ask my clients when they come to me either on a leadership journey or an alcohol free journey. I work with individuals in active recovery to help them manage destructive emotions and habits. But then I also work with executive and leaders to manage destructive emotions and habits to help them achieve, maintain, and grow. So I've branched out a little bit in just kind of the emotional wellness and emotional intelligence field. But the first thing I always ask people is, From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, what would your day look like if it was a perfect day and money didn't exist and, you didn't have to do anything and bills didn't exist? What would you do? And how far away are you from that in your life today? And then it paints this map of like, oh, I know where I'm trying to go and I know where I'm at. Okay, now let's be intentional in getting there instead of just trying to accidentally go grow through life, right? Because people are like, yeah, if I just experience this, then I'll be better or I'll grow on the other side. That's accidental.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, I couldn't agree more. I'm so anti, well, let's just throw a bunch of stuff on the wall and see what sticks. That is totally a great, sure way of really running into a lot of minutia in your life. It doesn't work. And one of the things that I did innately, and then later on in life, I learned as I kept learning that there was that it actually was a process, is really going by, which is so similar to your 90-10, is going by that one thing. What's the one thing, right? And then goal setting down to the now. And I will say this, everything that I put as that one thing, I don't do lists. Lists, please, multitasking, it's like failing at many things at the same time, right? And so I don't do that. That's not my approach to coaching or my approach to my own life and coaching my own self in life. That everything I can say that I put on that one thing is I've done. I've done. I want to be this, I want to be from when I was a little girl, when I was, a very young girl. I want to be a professional dancer on stage in Hollywood. By the time I was 23, I was on Star Search.
Wow.
I didn't go to college. All I did was live, eat, and breathe, honing my craft. I was a fierce dancer, and the fiercest dancers reside in New York City. You should know.
Yeah.
So, that was one, right? And I want to be, I want to be an actress on stage in New York. Bing. I did like 3 off-Broadway shows. I wound up being having like a comedy troupe, being part of a comedy troupe, and so on and so forth. I wound up on a soap opera. I was on film. But everything I had to be intentional with. This is what I want. And then I would goal set down to the now. And I still have my card, Jay. I use like good old fashioned index cards, and my clients see it. I show it to them because I coach through Zoom, and I show them how yellow everything is where I've done it. This is what my intention is. This is the year and month and day I want to have it done. And this is when I did it. And then I do a check mark.
Yeah.
Right. My book. I'm going to launch my book on this date. And this is the date I did it. Ding. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Right. The things that, ironically, where things went awry was because I did not have all those needs fulfilled. I didn't see that I needed all these needs fulfilled. So I never had in there the great relationship, the this, the that, the child, right? I was just letting, and this again, I want listeners to understand, stop waiting for the universe, just depending on the universe and let things happen. That is BS.
No, didn't you know that purpose would just show up at your door and knock on
Oh,
it and tell
yeah.
you to come chase it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is just BS, right? Yeah. It's like, it's the other way around. You put that intention out there and you instruct the universe as to what it is, what creation that already exists that you want to experience. And so when I started to learn those things, I'm like, why am I doing so great with this? And why am I do so great with, entrepreneurship? I had these 3 gyms. I was rocking it. I crushed it as a single divorced mom. But why is this so bad? Well, this meaning relationship, I never considered relationship as, oh, the one thing. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? You need to add those parts into your life. And what's really funny is I was single for like 10 years, happily single.
Mm.
And then one day I said, well, and now my son has like, he has the love of his life. And I'm like, what am I going to hang out with these two? Like, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be happily single. And I said, all right, and there was that fear, like in anything else, of, oh my gosh, a relationship like a forever thing, or even just thinking of a relationship because
Mm.
I didn't score well in that department.
Mm.
I knew that I was ready, but this time I manifested it and I put it on that one thing. I picked exactly what I was looking for, what he would do.
Mm.
Would he be tall? Would he be like everything? And I manifested exactly what I put on my list
Yeah.
during COVID. He's going to be tall. He's going to have dark hair. He's going to have light skin. He's going to be a saxophone player. He was all of that. I
Yeah.
swear. I
Yeah.
swear. Is that not funny? So I
Mm.
love the whole be intentional because there's
Mm.
so much that is more rich than meets the eye.
Yeah. Yeah. 100. And the only difference between your current reality and the reality that you want is the emotional attachment that you have between the realities. That's it.
Yeah. Repeat that again for our
The,
audience.
the only difference between your current reality and the reality that you want is the emotional attachment you have to both realities. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And
That's
and you also talked about um that accidental. So I want to close that loop a little bit too, because that's really critical as well. And so I have a garden outside. So I'm just going to do a little analogy for a moment. When you talk about that accidental growth as opposed to intentional growth, it really reminds me of, okay, and it has that spurt and then it dies off or whatever, it's not good. It reminds me of like when you have in your garden or you buy something at the grocer that has been fed hormones
mm, mm,
and that's going to have a lifespan. You
yeah.
notice like, oh my goodness, like it looks like it's all great and fresh. You take it home and like it's like wilted or brown or not good the next day. Well,
By the
you
time you get in
know,
the back seat,
the
it's
you know and but the same thing, there is that accidental growth. There's that fake nurturing, that quick fix, right?
Mhm,
Let's get a
mhm.
crop out there and sell it, man. But guess what? It's probably the most unhealthy thing you could put into your beautiful human body,
Yeah.
as opposed to let's nurture this. Let's really root this in really, really fruitful ground and nurture it, even if it takes time. And maybe one season, not so fruitful. It's okay. Maybe next season, you'll have even better crop and better crop and better crop.
That's a beautiful analogy, because it oftentimes when we take the short route or the quick route, we leave something behind, and typically when that's dealing with dreams, goals, aspirations, even on a spiritual path or creating a life that you want to live, if you take the short route, you're going to leave character behind. And you're going to find yourself in places that you don't necessarily want to be in, right? And then you're going to have experiences or that are going to shape and mold you into the person that you tend to be after that experience. That's accidental growth. You said hormones, and then I was thinking about when you're talking about the garden, I was thinking about like the perfect tomato you see, then you just see like that extra like sprout outside of it.
Yes.
Like it's like, yo, what is this? Like I thought and that's it's like that accidental growth. Like, oh, sorry, we pumped you up a little bit too much with too many
Mm-hmm.
hormones or something like that. You can look at it in any type of way. Accidental growth what it comes down to, what that boils down to, is you having to make a different decision or change the way you think, the way that you live, the way that you like what you do in life because of an unforeseen circumstance. That's
Yeah,
accidental
because of a
growth.
life situation.
Yeah, and not even that, like even if even if I'm at the top of the hill, there's a hill coming out of my neighborhood. If I'm at the top of the hill and the light turns yellow and I try and speed up, but I run the light and then I get pulled over, guess what? Accidental growth.
Yeah.
Now I know that at the top of the hill, Jay, I can't make that light when it turns yellow because and I learned that through the ticket I got from running the red light.
Hmm.
Like,
Or
like
non-growth or accidental death.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it. So we stop living by accidental growth. Quit just letting life take you wherever that it feels like life should take you. This is your life, and I think that a lot of the listeners here, I think that you need to take life by the mane, chase the lion. Like
Hmm.
like live as if today was your first day of your life and the last day of your life. Like
Yeah.
live today as if purpose is not going to show up at your door and you actually have to go out and go find it,
Hmm.
right? Have a God-sized dream that you have to be intentional about going after, otherwise without divine intervention it will fail. Like literally be so intentional that people look at you and they know what you're going after. But
Yes.
yeah, that
Yeah.
accidental growth part is, I was so stuck in accident. Like every time I went to prison was accidental growth. Every time I saw a judge was accidental growth. Like every time that new rules are got implemented on me was accidental growth, and I got tired of accidental growth.
And that's what puts you in an adverse path
Yeah,
because you're not being intentional with what you really desire in life.
yo, like if you know what you want, go get it. Don't be like,
Right.
oh, and accidental growth lives and breeds and starts on, I'll do that tomorrow, versus on, okay, let's go get it now. And people
It-
get so surprised on like what I've been able to do and accomplish of just working for myself within a year, right? I said it's because I'm intentional. I didn't leave my job accidentally.
yes, no, I can appreciate that. There's a lot of people that also, and probably people on this podcast listening in that say, yeah, well, but I'm afraid to. How would you address someone getting through or over or beyond? I use the word beyond a lot, their fear of
um,
pivoting, of shifting their life, any situation in their life.
yeah, I would say, I would tell them, if you and I went to the gym right now and I showed you 225 pounds on the bench press and I said, lift it, you'd say, no, I can't do that. I'm scared, right? But if I told you a step by step training plan that will be able to get you to build that strength to a point in 12 weeks or 24 weeks, you'll be able to lift that. Would you believe me? Right? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
if you showed me the process and the plan,
Right.
cool. There is a be intentional with what you want to do. I can't just show up to the gym and go get under 225 pounds and lift it unless I've been training for that, unless
Right.
I'm prepared for that. And so if I'm intentional with my training, I'm intentional with where I'm going, I'm intentional. This is why I always tell people, get clarity before motion. Don't just start moving. Get clarity. If you're really scared, it's because you lack clarity and you don't have a step-by-step plan or a process to follow.
Totally get that. I was in uh, uh, the gym business. I had three. I opened up one franchise and then for women, a second, 6 months later, a second one, 6 months later, a third one. And one of the things that I used to emphatically tell women that were very challenged with either getting through some kind of physical ailment or challenged with with weight, with body fat. And many times people would say, I've been like this all my life. And one of the things I would say is you have to will yourself to change,
Mm, yeah.
period. Will yourself to change. You can't hope. I'm also not that, like one of the things that I said when I introduced you was your message is just not about like hope. Like, look, we have to go. I'm very much a advocate of really going beyond hope, which is why I really love this whole, intention and having that plan and being impeccable with your words, being impeccable with your actions, being, honoring, that good egg, if you will. But the point is, we can't just hope. We have to really will ourselves to shift our life in a specific space that we want to be. We can't just dream it. Well, the saying, like, you have a dream, great, but then once you actually put a date on it, then it becomes this action that you have to now start to honor, much like your covenant with God years ago, right?
Absolutely. And that's the difference between most people. Um, let's just use speakers. Some speakers chase the stage, and some speakers create the stage, and waiting on that date to come. And that's the only difference in from a speaker getting on stage is setting a date and creating the stage, right? And that's what wills it into motion. Victor Frankl wrote a book, A Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh
And
my God.
isn't it phenomenal?
I
Isn't it?
couldn't get beyond the first couple of chapters. It was really it was a bit much for me,
Wow.
but I'm going to tell you what I learned from it, and I want to hear what you have to say about it, because he's quite a remarkable man.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It it One, if you guys don't know who Viktor Frankl is, he created logotherapy, which is what Lily was just referring to. Of you have to will yourself to want to change, and in any circumstances, any tribulations, any environment, you can find optimism. It's your choice.
Yeah. And just so that our listeners know, Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust
So yeah,
survivor.
yeah,
And he was, prior to that, he was a psychiatrist.
yeah,
So he was a psychiatrist. And one of the things that got him to actually survive the Holocaust and not get burned quickly like his other um, people in the community within the concentration camps was that he literally would work with he would talk with, as a psychiatrist, he would actually help the guards
yeah,
in a mental and emotional capacity, which is really the irony of that, for me, Jay,
mm,
is that he held a heart of service. And that's what I'm all about.
yeah,
Anytime I have a conversation, it's always about one conversation and then the next conversation. It's never about, will this person want to be my client? Well, I want to have this person as my client, and because I actually, it's more the other way around. I choose if I want to work with someone or not.
yeah,
And should they accept, great. But it's always about me taking that very ever so present moment, whether it's 1 hour or 2 hours, to serve them fully and wholly.
yeah, yeah,
And that is the only way that I work. That's the only way I operate. And so I found it really ironic that this guy survived because he was serving the very people that were killing everyone in the
yeah,
most unfathomable way.
mm,
Um, I'm curious what you learned from that book, because there was one thing that I took away from the first couple of chapters that I read, and before I even went on, which I never went on. I will return to the book, but I want to hear what you learned from that book, why you brought
yeah.
that up.
Yeah, well, you were talking about willing to change, and what you were speaking of represented tragic optimism, which is the number one teaching of Viktor Frankl, is that life has meaning under any circumstances, and that's one
Mm.
thing that I learned is that under any circumstance, life has meaning. You have to will meaning into the circumstances,
Ah, I didn't get
and
that far in the book.
and
Interesting.
and so that tragic optimism that he used was him willing meaning into the concentration camp to make it, whether he died in there or not, it was going to be meaningful for him to be there.
Mm. And I saw that not only was it meaningful while he was in it, I mean, after with the book but while he was in it, he was presently meaningful by serving others. That was so interesting. I only went, like I said, a few chapters, maybe 3 chapters in, and I pulled out one thing and I never returned back to the book, as I mentioned.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, it's exactly for this season. And
Yeah.
what I pulled out was only the inside man knows.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, can I relate to that? Because as a coach now, and as I'm also a domestic violence expert on major media TV and radio, and also I teach in universities across the nation on
Wow.
how to recognize, identify the disguises behind abuse, uh, and also I do work with some uh, high profile attorneys on how to identify the disguises, also not just with victims, but with the perpetrators.
Yeah.
But nobody does. And I remember when this one high profile attorney I was having a long conversation with, she said, because I'm totally transparent. No, I don't have a master's in it. No, I don't have a psych degree, and no one this and no one that. She said, well, what makes you an expert?
Mm-hmm.
And I, without even a pause, Jay, I said, my life experience makes me an expert.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know from a childhood in a domestically violent situation with a completely different character of a father,
Yeah.
with another husband, and then the other husband, all three were completely different,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I got to say this, she did not, she was like, it opened up a conversation. We were on the phone for 2 hours after that.
Wow.
And she said, about my sister, right? Her sister
Mm-hmm.
was, and not to get into a long tangent, but this is really important for listeners to understand. Here's this high profile attorney. She's been on 2020. She's had history, and she does a lot of this pro bono. Her sister, because what I do a lot of myth busting. So it's not what you think. It's not the person that's just raised in the inner cities that is domestically violent, situation. It's not the one whose mother's a drug addict and father's an alcoholic. It's not any of that. It's the guy and the girl next door. It's anyone's story.
Mm-hmm.
And so her sister was married to a surgeon, white, Jewish, upper crust, you would think. He chopped her up and chopped her up and threw her out of, in a hefty bag, her remains out of over the Hudson River from his jet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I said to her, my experience makes me an expert, and I said it confidently because I'm confident about it, she stepped back and she's like, wow, that went into a whole 2-hour conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
About her sister, what brought her to becoming this high profile attorney. I learned she was not even an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
She just became an attorney later in her life, because she knew that the husband had killed her sister, but she needed to find out and prove it. And she actually did. And 14 years later, the guy was living free. 14 years later, she had him convicted.
Wow.
But the story is that she realized, wow, yeah, because if she was in it, they would have understood it even while her sister was living in it. And so that's what makes you so uniquely good at what you do. That's what makes me so uniquely good at what I do. That's what makes you listeners so uniquely great at what you do, is
Mm.
because you're the man in it or
Yeah.
woman. So only the man inside knows.
Yeah.
Was like, wow, that was what God wanted me to learn from that book.
Yeah. And sometimes that's it. Sometimes that's it. Wow, that's good. Because and I would rather for you to read one page 100 times and 100 different pages one time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you would rather like sometimes I'll read 3 or 4 pages of a book and be finished with it and just be done with it. Like, cool, I
Mm-hmm.
got what I
Yeah.
needed. Got what I
Yeah.
needed. Right.
Yeah. And you pick it up.
Yeah, I don't search for inspiration, right? I know that that's going to come, but no, that's so good. Only the man inside knows, and that's your compass. That's your compass.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else, I always say that nobody else can live this life for you. Like no
Mm-hmm.
matter no matter what. No matter what you do, where you go through, what goes on in your life, and what other people say about you, it is your life. Like it's my life. It's mine. Like, and the thing about it, one thing that was extremely freeing for me is that with my expertise, where I've been through, what I've learned, what I've been able to discover, is that still, and I still operate to this day today, that I don't owe anybody anything. And then I don't serve anybody here on earth, and nobody here is my God. Nobody here is my God. I didn't make a covenant with anybody here on earth. So I don't
Mm.
care what anybody here thinks of me, or what they see, if they see me an expert or not, or there's people who disagree with me, and there's people who agree with me. You know what? I could care less, because I don't serve them. I'm on an assignment from a higher power. That's
I
it.
love that. I even say this in my book. There's two words that came to mind when I had my awakening, and I had
Mm,
many awakenings, but there's two words that came to mind. Who cares?
yeah. No.
I don't care.
No.
I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care what anyone judges. I don't care what might happen. I don't care what might not happen, because the only thing that's really absolute is this moment, right? So who cares? And I love that. You serve one person, one God. I love that. Let me ask you a question, if I may. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You tell me what that means to you, or what the answer is to that, just off the top of your head.
No.
Give me one of the greatest things that you can say about your current alcohol-free life.
Being present with my son and him not seeing me drink every Friday night.
I love that.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite author?
My favorite author, Don Miguel Ruiz.
Oh, I don't know that one. I got to write that down.
Don Miguel.
And what are your non-negotiables in life? Give me three of them.
1 hour with God, 45 minutes of movement, and read 10 pages of a book a day.
Great, which you mentioned earlier. Those are your non-negotiables. Love it. And those are the things that changed your life. Love it. Great.
I really only have one, and that's spend an hour with God every morning. I
Mm,
get up 4:15 in the morning and spend an hour with God. First thing I do, and
beautiful.
yeah, that's part of my covenant.
Listening to God and speaking to God, both praying
Yeah,
and meditation.
yeah, prayer, meditation, written prayer, and reading scripture.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
Um, what is your favorite season? Summer, spring,
Fall,
fall, winter?
fall.
Why?
Look at it outside. It's September right now. It's the most slept on month in the year, man. You don't get anything over 85. You don't get nothing lower than 65. Like where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah.
where I've been conditioned, because there's some
Mhm.
people who don't have fall, right?
Yes.
But where I've been conditioned, fall is a season of renewal, just as spring, but I like to shed versus, bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. You
Yeah.
like to shed versus bloom.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, we're always evolving.
Why?
We're always evolving, and the only thing that's going to hold us back are the things that we're holding on to.
Hmm.
Everything in life is permanent. There's a time and season for everything. Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 1, or yeah, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, is that there's a time for everything. There's a time to grow, and there's a time to kill. There's a time to weep. There's a time to sow. There's a time to gather. There's a time to scatter. And so that time of shedding tends to be a lot harder for most people. And so me, I embrace the shed and wait for the bloom.
And when the bloom does come,
Yeah.
what does that feel like for you?
Alignment in God's will, because he's life-giving. I can only shed when I want to get rid of the things that no longer serve me. And that's
Mm.
not God's duty, that's mine.
Hmm. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And what is your one thing now? What's that one goal?
um I want to inspire and develop a million leaders. That's it.
Mm.
And leader isn't what most people think leader is. A leader is a person. I want to take anybody and everybody and turn them into a leader and how they lead.
Mm. Why? Why is that important to you?
Because if you don't design your life, somebody else will, and they won't have much planned for you.
That's
So
beautiful. What is the message that you would like our listeners to hear right now?
live today as your first day of your life and the last day of your life. Chase the lion. Have a God sized dream that is bound to fail without divine intervention.
Beautiful. And what would you tell someone that doesn't admit to or believe or emphatically feels that they don't believe in God?
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell them to look toward or hold on to or gravitate toward?
Something bigger than themselves. The world is always not enough when you're coming from a place of selfishness.
Mm. And do you believe, like, when we're on our deathbed, even like, people that are atheists or agnostic, and I'm not judging anyone that's on this call right now listening, but I I I would have to ask you, if you imagined you were on your deathbed, would you seek higher power? Would you feel like there's something more? And I've had people say without even a pause, no,
Mm.
I believe that that's it. You know, um, what would you say to that? 'Cause that's like a head scratcher.
Yeah. Um, at least work for an earthly legacy.
Oh, and maybe that brings them toward that be a good person concept.
Yeah, it's always a, and this is when I said find something bigger than yourself. I don't care if that's your business, if that's some
Oh, you mean
any
okay.
like anything big. Like if you're like, I don't believe in God. Well, why not? Because God's never done anything for me. Well, believe in something bigger than yourself. Like believe in your business, believe in your kids, believe in your legacy, believe in Buddha, believe in something that's bigger than yourself. Believe in, because that was the downfall of Lucifer, was him believing in himself. And
Mhm.
so and like believe in something that's bigger than yourself, that's going to take more than just you to accomplish. So if somebody's on their deathbed and they're atheist and they don't believe in an afterlife, okay, that's fine. What about life after you?
Yeah. Many times I suggest, like, I go, well, did you ever like go in the middle of like where there's no city or no small town, no lights, and you're in the wild, you're out in the mountains or on a big open field, right? Where the lights don't distract the essence of like the real vision of all the stars in the sky. And You see the galaxies and everything. There's nothing like it. Did you ever look up and you're looking and there's that knowing that, oh, there's so much more than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I always feel like, well, did you ever look up in the sky? Like, so when I have like a client, I'm like, that's interesting. I go, did you ever look up at the stars,
Yeah.
and look in wonderment and
Mhm.
in awe and
Yeah.
just innately know that there's so much more? And then they might say, well, maybe scientifically. I'm like, all right, then hold on to that. At least you know that there's this higher source that's so much bigger to your language and your point than you, but so much bigger than even this earthly human existence.
That
Because when right? And when people like say, "Oh, well, I'm not spiritual." Well, what are you talking about? Anything that's not this body is spiritual. That means whatever thoughts you're latching onto, whatever emotions you're feeling, guess what? That's not your body. That's spirit. So no matter whether you guys that are listening, and I say this all the time, and I'm always frankly honest, and I can be that way because it's my show. But if if you don't understand or connect or align with body, mind, and being, that's okay, but it doesn't make it untrue.
yeah.
As long as you at least try and be in the moment, be present, and just be open to the possibilities of it all.
Yeah. That's it. That's all just the possibilities that something could possibly be different and that your way may not be the best way. And that's what it took for me.
Yeah, that's humility, right? Yeah, we all
That's
have
you.
to.
Your way may not be the best way. And that's cool. Like that is completely fine. But that's what it takes to see another way. And even if, I have friends all the time that I work, like I'm not religious at all. I'm spiritual. And when I'm working with, because I found God in a prison cell. I didn't find God in a church. I didn't find God. Like I went to church. I was raised Baptist. I've been baptized twice. Like like,
Total immersion.
like you know what I mean. But like that spirit part didn't come until I got spiritual, until I got serious about it. And so even with most of my clients, during our first our meet and greet is I asked them, "Are you a believer?" And 9 times out of 10, they go to what happened in church. They go to religion. They go to rules. They go to laws. And I'm like, yo, that I'm not even asking you that. I'm just asking if you're a believer. Like, do you believe? Like,
I
well,
love
yeah,
that. That's the challenge with, yeah, why people like have a
yeah,
bad look on
because
that
because
because
it's
of,
I'm like, yo, I'm not religious. I was in prison when I was praying. I wasn't in church.
yeah,
And I go, but I'm a believer. And so when it comes to being a believer, all we have to do is believe that Jesus is Jesus, right? I ain't gonna get too preachy here, but you brought it up for me. I love it. But and that seems to always allow people to think a little bit deeper. If you remove religion and the laws, do you believe?
mhm,
and and
mhm,
and engage yourself from there. And if you don't, how can we get deeper understanding? I truly believe that God is the only thing in this world, universe, this existence, that when we take one step towards God, he takes 10 steps towards us. So
mhm,
all we have to do is just say his name, you know,
mm,
and search, and
mhm,
he'll take 10 steps towards us. All we got to do is take one, but we got to continue taking that one step. When we
mhm,
decide to commit and move, so does the universe and God, and everything around us starts to conspire to work together.
mhm. Yeah. And it's so, I love how you said you found God like in the jail cell. We we really only find the light in the darkness.
That's the only way that the light can
The
shine
only
the
way,
brightest.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because when you're in the light, you ain't looking for more light. But when you're in the darkness, that's when you start to seek out light, even if it's that little light coming out in the corner. In my book, Truth to Triumph, I I speak of like my tenacity as like those grass blades
Wow.
in cement that are growing out toward the sun.
Yeah. Wow.
And um, that's for me. uh, I've learned that no one awakens while they're in the light. It's always in a dark place. The biggest leaders and thought leaders and just world leaders on this earth have come from a very dark place. You mentioned Gandhi before. Well, none of these leaders were rosy, you know.
No,
I mean,
yeah. That's
we could mention a bunch of them, right?
yeah.
And so that's what really makes everyone so uniquely special. And I'm so honored to have you on here today. And I know that there's so much value. This was such a powerful download for all of you listeners to really participate in. And I really urge you not only just subscribe to this podcast so that you can learn when there's more new downloads here as far as episodes. But I also have, for subscribers only, I have special episodes, special recordings and that are just for subscribers, where I go deeper into things that are not part of the regular episode. So avail yourself to that. And I think in closing, clearly we know that Jay, you really follow a path, yes, every day of practicing being a good person, but your underlying strength is God is your rock. I could see that, and that's your light that you follow, and that's who you serve ultimately. Is that right?
That is completely right. You caught it. You caught it. Not many people catch it. You know how many people are like, Jay, what's the secret? I'm like, it's God.
Yeah, yeah. And some people say the secret is there is no secret, which essentially is true also, because is God a secret? No.
No,
Everybody in the world, even when the ones that don't believe in God,
no
when you
God.
ask them God, they know what the word means.
Ain't no God.
It's no secret, right? And so
Mm,
whatever God means for you, go with that and just be present with that, and just again look at the possibilities that can evolve. Because what I will say is, um when you're intentional, like Jay said, and you love yourself in within that intention, and
mm,
you do love God or a higher power or a higher source, something higher than yourself and anything on this earth, I don't really see that you could let anything in but the light.
mm. Hence, don't touch my mindset.
And that's what I would like you to like kind of close us up on. What is that? Don't touch my mindset. You have, that's your, is that the name of your podcast? And also, is that also another formula that you've done, or what is that?
Don't touch my mindset is my reminder and dedication to my growth, no matter what's going on around me.
Mm.
And that's something that I have focused on since, taking part in this personal development, this change, this spiritual makeover. Um, but it is my podcast. It is the title of my podcast.
Mhm.
But most importantly, it's the title of the app that we just relaunched, which is the ultimate personal development tool, where we focus on mindset, growth, everything on putting you in a better place of living a growth centered lifestyle and moving forward despite circumstances, situations, or what other people say.
Mm, I love that. And by the way, for all of the listeners, I'm going to have all of these links in the podcast notes. So no worries about writing things down. I'm going to have all of those links available for you. Don't touch my mindset. Wow. What an aggressively powerful statement that is.
I
That's
love it.
great. I
That's
love it. And it
amazing.
reminds me of when you saying about as far as the growth part of the like the app and its purpose, it reminds me of, I don't know if you're aware of that. It's an older book, Rick Warren.
Uh,
purpose-driven life.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
I've
would
heard.
probably appreciate that because I think he is a West Coast guy. Not that you're West Coast, but he wrote that for not for the he wrote it for the world, but he wrote it through the eyes of a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
like the Christian community about a purpose-driven life. And I love that. And that's another book I didn't read all the way through, but there's some really nice little golden nuggets in there. So, Jay, where would you like them to reach out to you? Would you like them to go to your website? Would you like them to go on your social media, on the app? Again, all of the links will be on the show notes, but where would you like to, what's your most favorite invitation today for them?
Yeah. Download the app. Download the
Okay.
app. Download the app. Come into our world and like get around people who really, really do this. Like I've been doing personal development since 2017 and like and serious about it too. Like when I say I serve one God and I'm serious about that. I'm serious in my disciplines. I'm serious. Like we have the 90-day personal growth challenge, which is free. We have the 90-day personal growth mentorship program, which right now, if you download the app, it's a small fee, but I mean, it has so much value on there. But
Mhm.
um, but yeah, if you just go, don't touch my mindset in the Apple App Store, or just reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll get you the link directly at
Great. And
the
the link's going to be
Nation.
here, you guys. I'm
Yeah.
going to have the link on the show notes,
Yeah.
not just the visual on YouTube, but it's going
Yeah.
to be on the show notes for all the podcast that's going throughout the globe. So don't touch my mindset. And
Mm.
I'm going to leave it with that because there's clearly no one is touching your mindset, Jay,
Mm.
and you have been such an inspiration and such an amazing example of someone who is living that lifestyle and helping in people's their other people's growth, but also your self growth and your lifestyle in uh, alcohol free, substance free, violence free. All of you're just you've let go, you've shed, you're a total. You've embraced the autumn seasons in your life and
A
you just
lot.
continue to bloom and I honor you for that. Thank you for being here.
It's been truly a blessing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful. And like I said, I'm just blessed and honored. So until
Thank you.
next time, right?
Until next time. See you soon on Beyond the Current Situation.